almost 50 inches of rain in a year. That's a lot of rainy days. What was 150 days of water in this area? So that's enough to cause some major damage. Okay, so you keep going. Here's more rot. This is, I'm just telling you these kind of things because we're talking about moisture damage, and these are the things that we find when we walk up on roofs. So here it's taken this fascia board and destroyed it. I literally put my finger through it. So the next one is, so these gutters, this is something you buy at Home Depot. It was not installed correctly. It actually went uphill, and it did not have, like this, didn't have an end cap, so the water just poured out, and like half of it was hitting, half of it was just running over. But now here's the illustration, the first illustration, the drawing that we were looking at. I was talking about the downspout. So downspout, so for example, at this point it would come off of this gutter and go down, and it should go down into the ground so it can take the water to the road. In this case, it goes down within 6 inches and the water's just sitting here as a lake. Well, water is then going to seep down into the ground and go under this house. And you can see the moss behind here. You can see the concrete has multicolors, which means it's saturating into the walls, which then there's a sill plate, a 2x6, 2x4 that's laying down on top of this that your walls are attached to that then can rot. So let's look at another section. Here in the back of the house, it did not have a foundation. So the sill plate, which your walls are attached to, was set straight onto the ground. And after 20, 30 years, however old this building is, it just destroyed the siding because the water just was seeped, you know, a sponge basically. It just was pulled up in, and these were open areas. You know, I could put my fingers through, and you know, you could see my fingers if I were standing on the inside. Here's another area that you need to have all areas of wood, siding, plywood. This is the roof looking from underneath. These all need to be painted. You'll have mushrooms, you'll have mold growing. So let's go to a different one. So here again, I started up on the roof with the inspection. This is a 412 pitch. It's not very steep. The 912 pitch would be like going at an angle like this, very steep. So it's a 412 pitch. But I want to show you some things that are added, extras, nice things to look at to protect your home. This has a little metal right over top of this white piece of wood, has a little metal cap. That makes it so when the water is coming down, hitting it, it hits the metal cap and goes right over the edges. Whereas a lot of people don't do that, and that area on top of this 2x12 gets to, or 4x12, whatever it is, gets rotted. And to replace this beam that goes all the way through from one side of the house through the other is very expensive to repair. So you want to protect areas that are exposed to the moisture. So let's go to another area here. This gutter has a leaf guard system, which is great. So here we have, whereas the last picture we had the downspout just draining onto the soil, here we have them both going underground, so the water just goes in. So that means this area out here is only getting the rain from the outside instead of the rain from the outside plus all the water from the roof coming down here, which then goes down to your basement or your crawl space. Okay, next section. This home, this was the deck. I could put my screwdriver in multiple areas, so there was a lot of rot. This picture here, this is looking from the outside at an addition, and it's one of those plastic roofs that I think that they had just an awning or something long ago, and then they covered it in, and now they use it as a year-round room. I mean, they closed it all in. Here is that same beam on the opposite side of the house. So it still has this metal cap, but unfortunately they probably painted it when it was still wet or didn't use the right paint. But this wood here was all rotten, and I could put the screwdriver in and show that. More areas that didn't have paint and it was a little soft. The roof or the deck from down below was rotten. More areas of rot on the deck. Here's that addition. So, and there's still one more picture I'll show you, but you can see a little bit more. There wasn't enough space the way that they did this to put on a real roof with a slope, a correct slope. So what they did instead was just use this plastic, very, very cheap. It's not supposed to last as long as this has been there. This is probably, I think it was 10-15 years old, and so surprisingly it was that old and still kept most of the water out. Now the roof, up on the roof, when I walked around the chimney, you could see areas that were cracking and pulling away. Well, they obviously didn't do it correctly. The moisture got inside. They didn't keep up on the maintenance, and then once water gets in, and if it's during the winter, the ice will push out and separate this. It needs to be sanded down with wire brush and installed with the correct type of paint. Okay, so here, this is in the room above that corrugated, and this, sorry about this, I put on this yellow detail for the mouse, and this it requires you to upgrade to get rid of it. But because this room had that corrugated plastic, there was a lot of moisture inside the room. And you'll see there's ants all around. This area back in this corner was, you can see next to my hand here, my finger, how wet it is. And I kneeled down and it went right through my jeans immediately. And so the next picture, you'll see all the ants. This is in the opposite back corner that is the driest, but all the moisture ants come in because that's what they do. So so I just want to show you, it's not just the damage that is caused by any single item. It can be all of them together, and then that will bring in ants. It will cause damage when you're talking about moisture. It's a lot of different items that you're looking at. Okay, so here's a roof that looks pretty good from this point. So this is the front of the house, and there's nothing really wrong here. Obviously that it needs to be painted and upkept there, and you can start seeing some moss. Now we go to the next section, and this is where this, it's closer to where the trees are back over here, and so pine needles, and this was literally 2 to 3 inches thick of moss. Up on top of the roof, I look at this one area that was redone. They decided to make a bedroom in the room below this. It used to have a fireplace, and they capped it. Well, this is a 5-gallon lid cap, and it's not even taped on. The tape was obviously there at one point, but probably 10-20 years ago had just been torn off. It doesn't last very long. Here, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see moss built up. At your home, go out and take some bleach, granules. Could be like for washing your clothes or your dishwasher. You can also use the little granules, just spread it up on top, and it will work its way down. Here, this is moss that tears off these granules, and once the granules are gone, you're down to the fiberglass, the black fiberglass, and you start having moisture problems on the underneath side, obviously. Alright, so here we go into a downspout that takes it to the road. but at another area they just run it away from the house a little bit, maybe a foot and a half, but that same water in this particular house ran right back. This was higher ground than this was, so the water went straight to the crawl space. I could not get in this crawl space because it was just pure mud, and it was not a pleasant experience if I would have climbed all the way in it. Okay, so in the back of the property, this was I believe this one was concrete, but it had a downward slope, and the downward slope caused it to rot up against the siding. Here, this was the front of the house, and underneath where the valleys came down, this was a rotting out area, and when it rots out, it's an expensive fix. Okay. Here you have more rot in the back, the deck. These pieces of plywood that were there for a second layer, you couldn't even stand on the plywood even. It was beginning to rot, especially in this area here. Okay. Now, under this house, the moisture, there was a lot of, this was the driest area I could get in on the crawl space, but down here it was a couple inches of just mud underneath. You had animal, rodent tracks, and you just have a lot of moisture in the crawl space adds for a lot of extra bugs or rodents, and they love, like over here you can see the insulation falling down. This is an area that rats or other rodents that get into your house, they love to make nests in